Hello there! So today I want to play around with the create mod a bit more so I can finally actually remove this. This here is my starter encased fan setup. Encased fans can be used to smelt, smoke, haunt, or wash items to process them into different materials. And this one did all four. I've already made the smelter to replace that function. I just have to do the other three. Let's do that. This started, as many of my projects do, by just smoothing out the foundation. I filled in the floor with stone and filled in the wall with terracotta as I had before because I was just copying the smelter. I did them in the same day. This is about an hour after I finished the first one. I was originally going to put them all in one video. That did not work out. So that's why I'm kind of glossing over a lot of the decision making in this part. Because there is no decision making, I'm just copying the smelter. I was in denial that I was still sick at this point, and this is actually before I built the portal room. So this didn't go exactly as planned, but the machines do still work. There's maybe some improvements that could be made. I've identified them now, it's fine. But at this point I am just speeding through and copying everything from the actual smelter. Also Tato's here, I don't know if you can hear her purring. But I was just copying the smelter, so actually I wasn't even checking it, I was just doing it all by memory. Again, I had just done it. I forgot some things, like the fact that I never put the andesite funnels on the other side, and I also never actually programmed the brass ones. So the first time I tested it, all of the cobblestone that I was putting in it came out in full stacks and then got stuck on the other side because there was nowhere for it to go. But other than that, and I think maybe there was a hopper that was facing the wrong direction, everything went pretty smoothly for this bit. It helps when you're just copying something because the actual redstone behind having two different types of fire didn't go as smoothly. I felt really prepared coming into this because I built a prototype. The problem with building prototypes is if you don't build them in context, there may be some kind of factor you didn't realize was at play, and that might be the problem, as it was in this case. I built it, I got it to switch between the blocks and light them up, and everything worked fine. The issue is more so the fact that the blocks that I'm lighting on fire are set below the belts, and they actually need to be level with the belt so that the fire is actually above them. And then there's the whole, the pistons are being powered by a block update and not actually by the powering of the repeaters. Redstone's fun. I even got about 80% of the way through building this before I realized what the actual problem was. Right about here, I would say. Yeah. So I just tried lifting the pistons, which felt like an obvious choice. The only thing that accomplished was turning off the copper bulb because I accidentally made a small redstone clock. Because again, it's actually being powered by the update of the block, not by the actual redstone power. Pistons are strange. They don't really work the way you expect them to sometimes. But I was kind of frantically trying all kinds of things, so I lifted them up, tried that. They weren't moving. So I thought, oh, maybe the repeaters are wrong. No. And then I thought maybe redstone lamps, maybe they'll push an update. That one didn't work either. So I know a little bit about redstone. I'm not like an expert or anything, but I did just take a step away from this for a moment, and that was maybe a little more effective than I thought it would be. So, I figured it out. We do have a fun new problem, and that is that I am gonna need honey. And guess what I do not have? I'm gonna go ahead and just destroy what's not staying. So I am gonna have to try to make some honey. I had another slime block. There it is. Because half of it is going to have to be honey, and if I remember correctly, honey should be able to pull it. If not, we're gonna have to work on a slightly different solution, and I really don't feel like pivoting again. On the bright side, I get some of my copper bulbs back. Thankfully, I had a box of bees just in storage, so it was a matter of just setting up a temporary apiary and then just waiting for them to do their thing. And then, once I had the honey, install it into the machine. Yep, okay. We found our solution. Our solution is simple-ish. I just have to wait for bees. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on the rest of the mechanism while we wait for the bees to do their job. I was considering that since I am just simplifying this, why don't we just simplify it further and not do the circuit that I was going to do before. So this is where our dispensers will go. So now we just have to figure out a way to power them, and what I had before was a whole mess. Like, let's be realistic. But now I can kind of just simplify it a little bit. Do this. So we're observing whether or not this block here is powered. I think that's how that works. Spoiler alert, it does not work that way. I then proceeded to get distracted again, so that's fun. So I can have another block here. That's gonna be fine. So the actual fans are gonna go right up here. Let me put them in real quick. And then I think you would probably cover these a little bit to make this look a little more complete. Okay, so let me get back to the lighting mechanism real quick. What is with the thunderstorms in this game? It startles me every time because I'm underground. So I guess we'll see if swapping this makes a click sound. We did this correctly. Then apparently we did not do this correctly. Yep, dispenser failed. Okay, cool. That worked. Now I just have to get the fans moving. So this should have the same setup as the other one. Okay, cool. This one is now operational. Completely, too. I even got to install the feature I wanted and wasn't sure I was gonna get. Okay, at least cover this up. Alright. That is the second one down. Now we have to figure out how to do the other one. I love that I got that to work. So I did go in and actually fill these up. Maybe in the future, one thing I might add is some kind of thing to refill these a little easier. For now, this works. I honestly thought the redstone was going to be a little simpler for these ones. I guess it wasn't. The only thing is the washer is a little more complicated. I need the items to be separated. Because otherwise the packaging circuit is not gonna work. We're gonna have to change that up. Ideally in a way that it can be like, swapped out with little to no effort. There's only one real way to do that, and that is to actually get started. Of course, this one has the same foundation as the other two. A simple stone floor and a front panel with 2 chests and a big window in the center. And that is about where the similarities end. I wanted to save as much space as I could to build the sorter that I still had no idea how to do. I just don't really have a great explanation as to why I did it this way with the 2 wheels on either side. It didn't actually save any room, but I guess I did it anyway. I did manage to fit everything in about 6 blocks of space though, which did give me plenty of room that I didn't even end up needing. This is also the only one of the machines that I started off by figuring out the fans and not the logistics in the front. I guess I just wanted to make sure this would actually function like this before I committed to it and moved on to anything else. To make sure the fans were working at the distance I needed them to, I decided to test them with a little bit of fire. Thankfully, I realized Soulfire would be better to test this with before I burned myself. Once I had that confirmed, and I spent some time building it up a bit, I moved on to figuring out the belt layout. Instead of the full 4-lane U-shape I used on the other 2, I opted to try something a little different. Brass tunnels can be used to evenly distribute items across multiple belts, which is definitely much cleaner than the noodly contraption I built trying to accomplish the same thing when I first started playing around with the Create mod. Between the distribution settings on the tunnels and the filter on the funnel, I can really fine-tune this, which is always so helpful. After some more building, I realized that speeding up the first belt that feeds the rest would be a huge improvement, so I got working on that. It took a bit of trial and error, but I did get an adjustable chain gear shift installed, and it worked perfectly. With that up and running, it was finally time to run the first test, and it worked beautifully. It just maybe got a little stuck at the end. I figured now would be a good time to actually tackle the sorting system, and I could fix any issues with the belt later on. One of the few things I actually knew about this going in is that I wanted to use storage drawers from the storage drawers mod as a filter. This is a bit of an older mod, considering it's been around since 1.7.10 in 2014, which, funnily enough, is when I started playing this game. These single drawers can hold 32 stacks of a single item by default, which is fantastic, and they can also be upgraded to hold even more, which makes them perfect for uses like this. I hooked up some packagers so that I could use those to pull out items that way, and use some belts to try to feed it into the hoppers leading to the output chest. I don't really need any more flint, so I've just been burning that up. Trying to get iron this way makes so much of it, and it has very limited uses, and I have plenty at this point anyway. Once I got all of that hooked up, I decided to test it to make sure it would work properly. This is also when I finally decided that the processed items getting stuck was enough of a problem that I actually needed to do something about it. A quick item vault with funnels into it will keep items from needing to wait their turn, and it only needs a single belt to pull things out. I needed it to be 4 blocks long, which can't be done with just 1 wide because they have a length limit for their width. I believe it can't be more than 3 times the width, so 1 wide can only be 3 long, but 2 wide can be up to 6, I think. Another quick test showed that this worked super well with no issues. Okay, maybe one small issue? Did you happen to catch that? Because I didn't while I was doing this. Surely that won't cause problems later. But since I didn't notice that some of the gravel made it through, I moved on to simplifying the item sorter a bit. I removed the excess belts and built a hopper chain over to the packagers. I also added a remote button so I could manually push out a package from the hallway. To actually empty everything, I realized I could have the packagers powered when the machine is off. This would pull items out when everything is through, making sure packages that are pulled out are full, and any incomplete packages will also be pulled out with no issue. Once the storage drawers are completely emptied, the system is reset and it's ready for its next run. So remember that problem I didn't notice before? I definitely noticed it now. Somehow gravel got through so early, it actually took up the second slot, which meant iron was being ejected from the belt into the hoppers. And when I ran it again, So much gravel was coming through that I decided to temporarily add a third slot, but it quickly filled up and gravel was still pouring into the hoppers. The hoppers were also picking up items from the belts themselves, so I had to stop and fix that. From what I could tell after watching it for a bit, when the gravel split into two items, it would push back the one behind it, and then it would seemingly almost push through faster. At the very least, the split seemed to be causing some issues with the speed that would build up until a wave of unprocessed gravel made it through. I changed the tunnel's distribution mode to round robin, figuring having the items pop out of one tunnel at a time would give them space between each other on the belt, meaning that the split wouldn't push anything back and the timing would be correct. And it worked! To the point that the third slot on the item sorter was completely empty and no random items leaked through to the chest. I was able to remove the emergency third slot, and it works amazingly now. Well, I think it's finally safe to say I can actually remove the old machine now. These guys work so great. They're amazing. I love them. Next time, I kind of want to take a break from machines for a bit, but I think we've identified something that really needs to be done. We need to build an apiary. That was a little rough. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna be doing next time. So I guess if you made it this far, I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!